Hello everybody and welcome back to round 4 of our Friday Night Magic. We got some Modern here for you. Kurt is playing Mardu, Pyro, and Andy Falk is playing Hardened Scales Affinity.
I like the Hardened Scales Affinity deck. I've seen it a handful of times at competitive level events, and it makes me do a lot of math.
It leverages Ancient Stirring. So for those of you who aren't familiar, the Hardened Scales is like, it's a different take on Affinity. It's green Affinity. All of your non-artifact cards are green, and that lets you, first off, it casts Ancient Stirrings more readily, more easily. You always have the green for Ancient Stirrings, and like the deck is built in a way to leverage the card Ancient Stirrings. And we see Ancient Stirrings, like Ancient Stirrings is a hot topic right now.
Its real hard hitter is the card Hardened Scales, which is a 1 green mana enchantment. This is whenever a +1/+1 counter would be put on a creature, put an additional counter on instead.
Yeah, and we'll get that card up next for you. But this is the card Ancient Stirring, so this lets him get any land or artifact. Well, it's any colorless card, which are lands, artifacts, and then
the only misses in this deck are other copies of Ancient Stirrings and Hardened Scales.
Hardened Scales, yeah. So now we can bring up Hardened Scales, and this is the card that really ties the whole deck together. This little card that was originally printed in the Cons block. It's an Obzon card, because Obzon was they cared about the scales. They were like the scales of the dragon. That was their thing. So this card, yeah, if one or more +1/+1 counters was put on a creature you control, you put that many +1. And so a lot of the cards in Andy's deck come into play with a +1/+1 counter. So
which get the effect.
Which get the effect. So
we're talking Arcbound Ravager is the hard hitter here.
Arcbound Worker.
Arcbound Worker, which is what we're seeing right here.
Yeah.
And there's a new card, Sparring.
The Sparring Construct.
Sparring Construct.
Sparring Construct, when it dies, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on another creature.
It's kind of an Arcbound Worker light in this game.
Yeah. That's why they only play 2.
We also see
1 or 2.
Usually 4 Walking Blisses and some number of Hangerback Walkers.
Some number of Hangerback Walkers. 4 Steel Overseer, which put 2 counters on everything when they have. Insane. The deck is, yeah, it's built around Hardened Scales, and it leverages Ancient Stirrings better than the other Affinity deck, and that's why it's playing green. And you get some cool cards in the sideboard. We'll talk a little bit more about that, game 2. But there are a decent number of good pickups there as well. And this is where we're starting to see the Affinity decks shift towards this build, because this build
much more resilient.
It's more resilient and more explosive.
For sure.
But it also can be, it's more of everything. It can be more medium, where it really doesn't do anything. But it can also be more explosive when you get to start into the Hardened Scales and curve out really well. All your dudes just get really big. And it can be more resilient in the sense that you're not just going all in on a bunch of bad cards. Each of your cards are pretty powerful, plus you have Ancient Stirrings to help you rebuild.
Absolutely.
So we're starting to see this list take over a bit. That's an animation module, I think. It's one of the modules. And here the actual playable one.
We actually just saw Kurt Faithless looting away a Lightning Bolt. How do you feel about that? Lightning Bolt's really good in this match.
It's not really that good.
Well, like turn 1, like he could have, if he was able to cast that off of a second land, that would have been crazy. Like just taking these creatures off the board is so important.
Lightning Bolt's not that great in a deck against a deck that play. He was looking for lands, babe. He was really looking for lands, and he has other hard removal spells. I don't actually like the Inquisition of Kozilek. That's not really doing very much here. But Lightning Bolt isn't that great against a deck with Arcbound Ravager, because you just get to move the counters around. Yeah,
but in these times before Arcbound Ravager, like if he had seen a second land, then the Bolt would have been insane. I
would keep a Bolt over an Inquisition of Kozilek potentially. But, that's neither really here or there. I definitely would have gotten rid of the Bedlam Reveler, because you can use Kolaghan's Command to buy that back. That's actually just like a standard play.
Bedlam Reveler is a late game card anyway. Here it's not doing anything for you in the early game.
With Faithless Looting, you want to pitch ideally copies of Lingering Souls, other copies of Faithless Looting, and Bedlam Reveler. And Bedlam Reveler, then you buy back later with Kolaghan's Command
when it really matters.
Yeah. I see a I think that's a Goblin Rabblemaster in his hand, which is usually in the sideboard, but you can play it main deck, I guess, if you're so inclined.
He does have a Terminate in hand, and that Terminate is getting less good as the turns go. I predict that Andy is going to run out the Arcbound Ravager in his hand next turn. He wanted to set up to be able to double steal Overseer with the Arcbound out.
Terminate is getting less good as the years go by. It's 2018. No one plays Terminate anymore, dude.
Mardu does.
They do. I'm just messing around. I read that in an article. I read that in a Death Shadow article.
Yeah.
When Death Shadow started playing Dismember over Terminate.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's just a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So here we see like we were seeing like last round.
Yeah, this is the same thing, but with different tokens.
He got an additional token because of the Pyromancer. This land, let's bring up this land. I don't.
Soul of New Phyrexia.
You get to you can pay one and sack an artifact.
New Phyrexia's core.
You can sacrifice an artifact
like
to gain a life.
Yeah. Phyrexia's core, something like that.
A little bit of main deck burn hate.
It's more like it's a land-based artifact.
I'm just joking. I had an opponent say that to me during a match, like this week. I thought it was rude. So.
Yeah, that's pretty rude. Is that 2 Arcbound Ravagers? Yeah, that's 2 Arcbound Ravagers. That's pretty good.
It's pretty good. The great thing about Arcbound Ravager is it makes... Oh, God. Oh,
yeah, we have 2 Arcbound Ravagers and 2 Steel Overseers.
Oh, oh my.
This is looking more and more grim for Kurt as the...
Could you imagine if he had a Hardened Scales out?
Oh, that'd be insane. He'd have
yeah,
power on board already.
Jeez Louise.
This is kind of a slow setup, but... If the payoff, really, look at that payoff. He can sack that Arcbound Worker to one of these Arcbound Ravagers to put 5 counters on the Arcbound Ravager. Or 1 on the Arcbound Ravager and 4 on something else. It's just
6. He gets a counter for sacking the artifact, and then yeah, it's 5. You're right.
Yeah, 1 for the thing, and then 4 for the trigger.
Yeah.
The modular trigger on the Arcbound Worker itself.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So Arcbound Worker itself is just a 0/0 with modular 1, so it comes in with the counter, and then when it dies, you get to move the counter.
This is a late Terminate.
Yeah.
I think he should have done this last turn over playing the Souls.
And we're actually gonna cash in a Welding Jar.
No, we're not.
Oh, because it can't be
regenerated. Reading the card explains the card. Let's bring up Terminate and then get Welding Jar up so we can see why this doesn't work.
Look at me not remembering how Terminate works. You said it yourself. It's being played less and less. So it's fading from memory.
And okay, so destroy target creature can't be regenerated. Keep your eye on the second sentence there. Let's get Welding Jar up. Okay,
Rarely
so
relevant,
if you read, everyone read Terminate, great. Welding Jar, please.
Yep.
We're just driving it home. Really, like putting your nose in it. I want to make sure that this does not ever happen. Regenerate target creature. Sacrifice. Regenerate target creature. Can't do that in the face of a Terminate. Remember that. Don't let it happen to you. The more you know.
And knowing is half the battle.
Knowledge is power.
Something about thirst for knowledge.
We care about you here at Top Deck Productions. Okay, and that's going to wrap it up.
We have Kurt scooping it up.
This is just getting out of hand. You see that? He can put all those counters on the Walking Ballista and then just pow, 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 pow. Okay.
Looks like all of our HUD elements are disappearing here briefly, but we're getting that sorted out.
If you like what you see here and you want to rewatch the match you're seeing now or happen to miss this one, don't forget that we archive all of our replays at our YouTube page at youtube.com/TopDeckProductionsStream. If you're itching to follow us elsewhere on social media, give us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/TopDeckProductions. And be sure to check out TopDeckProductions.com for player deck lists, league standings, and more.
Don't forget that we're also in the midst of our giveaway phase of our development here. We're accruing points at the rate of 5 points for every 10 minutes. We're going to call it mana because this is a Magic stream. Why wouldn't we? Every 10 minutes you get, every 10 minutes you get 5 mana, or 10 if you're a subscriber. It's a great rate. You get 100 mana for every 100 bits that you cheer, and 500 mana just for subscribing, helping us keep this operation running.
That's right.
You get 50 for following, and you can check all that with exclamation points, which is the only important one, as we know. You need to check what's in the bank, you know? You feel?
You feels. I feels.
This week we're giving away Adaptive Enchantment. That's not actually right. We're giving away subjective reality. This card's from last week. We're giving away subjective reality, the Animato, the Fate Shifter, Esper Commander deck from this new cycle. For 25 mana, you get a ticket, up to a max of 10 tickets per person. Subscribers get a bonus round. You get a bonus choice, extra ticket. That's up to 11, I think. That's math checks out on that. And you know the drawing is just going to be at 10 p.m. on Tuesday.
10 p.m. on Tuesday after the conclusion of our Modern League night. So on Tuesday nights, we stream Modern, and it's our Modern League, where players can play for. Where players, in addition to the store credit they get at GameSwap, they're playing for cash prizes. So every week we keep track of the wins of each player in the league, and at the end of the month, the top 4 players get cash prizes. The first place walks away with 100, second place walks away with 50, and third and fourth each get $25. In order to participate, you have to be a minimum $5 subscriber at patreon.com/TopDeckProductions. You can also go to the Top Deck Productions website and pay through that. So if you're in the area and you want to put your money where your mouth is, come out for our Modern League. The competition here has gotten thick. A lot of the good players have come back.
It's thick with 2 C's.
Yeah, a lot of our competitive players have come back. It's tough out there. Wins are not free, so it makes for good games. If you can't make it, you should definitely come and watch.
And you know, we're always covering everything we do here.
Yep.
Even the stuff you don't want to see.
If competitive REL is more your speed, we have a PPTQ coming up on September 1st at 1:30 p.m. PPTQ, that's Preliminary Pro Tour Qualifier. So it'll be 6 rounds with a cut to top 8, and the winner of the top 8 gets an invite to the RPTQ. That's Regional Pro Tour Qualifier. And if you top 4 that, you're on your way to the Pro Tour. So the PPTQ is your first step on your road to the Pro Tour, and we're having one September 1st at 1:30 p.m. Yours truly will be hosting that, and we have it as of yet undetermined co-host, but we will be streaming it. So there you go. All right, we're going to start out with an untapped Blood Crypt. So Kurt's taking 2 so that he can cast either a red or a black spell, and he's going to choose Inquisition of Kozilek. I like leaving in the discard spells here because Hardened Scales Affinity is a little bit slower, especially if you're on the play.
There's an evolutionary leap. That's really interesting with the Hangerback Walker.
I'm not opposed to it. Hardened Scales Affinity is a little bit slower than your standard affinity in that Hardened Scales Affinity really only plays like 1 card a turn. They still have Mox Opal, which lets them cheat on mana, but for the most part, they're really only playing about 1 spell a turn. Whereas Old School Affinity plays like their entire hand on the first 2 turns of the game. So discard spells don't really do very much. Here, everything in Andy's hand costs like 2. So not only is he not doing anything the first turn of the game, he's not doing anything until the second turn. And discard spells are a lot better against those kinds of decks. Otherwise, Kurt only had like his first turn against like regular affinity, the more classic affinity list. Kurt really would have the window there would have only been the first turn if he wanted to take anything. So I see most of the time people take out discard spells against those affinity decks, but this one I can see leaving it in. All right, Kurt is going to play Young Peasy. Why the deck's called Pyro, and Andy's going to kill it by paying 2 mana to do 1 to it. Fortunately for Andy, Young Pyromancer only has 1 toughness. So down it goes. It's a fragile creature. It's a fragile creature, really.
High risk, high reward.
That's right. You get to untap with that bad boy and cast some spells. You are getting tokens. Ooh.
What's this?
That's a Stony Silence.
That is. Look at that.
Yeah. That's a Stony Silence. Now, Kurt doesn't have another land, but if he did, he could play that land and then play the Stony Silence if he had left the Sacred Foundry untapped. But he didn't, and that's because he didn't have another land, and he wanted to follow up with Thoughtseize. And see, again, like I was saying, against Classic Affinity, Andy's hand could be empty or mostly empty by this point, but he still has 5 cards because this deck is slower. Look at that. Look at all those 2-drops. And so Kurt has had plenty of time to deploy not one, but 2 discard spells. Just stripping away Andy's resources.
Absolutely. I feel like when you take away the Walking Bliss and the Hangerback Walkers, the Steel Overseers just get worse and worse. So you can just afford to wait and pick them off with removal spells. You don't need to use the hand attack spells on them. What do we got coming here? Stony Silence. Now we have 1/1s.
Andy's deck does not work now.
You can Evolutionary Leap still.
Yeah, you can.
Fun fact.
But Stony Silence was made to beat Affinity.
Yeah, basically.
Stony Silence came out like right as Modern was becoming a format, and it really helped like put the Affinity deck in its place where it could be good, but not like just run away with the day.
Sorry, did Andy just activate that Darksteel Citadel?
He can't activate the Darksteel Citadel.
That's what they're talking about. Yeah, they're just clarifying.
That is the messed up thing about Stony Silence. Unlike most cards like Stony Silence, unlike most hate cards, Stony Silence even affects mana abilities. Most hate cards
don't.
Yeah, they just don't. You can't name a land. Like with Pithing Needle, you can't name a land. Phyrexian Revoker doesn't take mana.
You can name a land with...
I'm getting it wrong.
Yeah, you're mixing them up. So with Pithing Needle, you can name any card, but it only turns off non-mana abilities. Right. Phyrexian Revoker, you can name any non-land card, but you can turn off any ability.
Right. So they try to limit the power of hate cards, and it's usually limited to the extent that they can't hit mana abilities.
But Stony Silence has the random benefit of doing that. Now, at the time, you know, the artifact lands were still legal in Modern. The whole cycle. Were they not?
No, those have been banned since the creation of Modern. Stony Silence is to turn off like Arcbound Ravager and Steel Overseer and stuff, but it also makes it so the Darksteel Citadel just has to sit there.
I'm thinking of Extended.
It just sits there. Darksteel Citadel can't tap for mana, and Mox Opal and Springleaf Drum sure as shit can't.
Oh, absolutely no.
But the big one, the really surprising thing about Stony Silence is that it makes it so the Darksteel Citadel cannot tap for mana. Darksteel Citadel doesn't do anything. It's just...
We're turning through a lot of non-creature spells with this Evolutionary Leap.
Yeah, look at all those not creature spells.
Yeah, there's all the air going to the bottom.
And I like what Kurt just said. Kurt said it gets you to your action. The Evolutionary Leap.
That's what it does.
Yeah, that's interesting. He had a surprising number of not creature spells.
We flipped through a Nature's Claim, unfortunately, which would have been the answer to the Stony.
That's what happens.
That is what happens. But
there's a Rakdos Charm in his hand. How do you feel about Rakdos Charm, Connor?
I love Rakdos Charm.
Tell us about Rakdos Charm, Connor.
Rakdos Charm is great. You can choose a mode. Just exile target player's graveyard. Destroy target artifact, which is, I'm sure, the relevant mode here. But you can also use the secret third mode of Rakdos Charm in this matchup. Each creature deals 1 damage to its controller. Now, in some scenarios, the Mardu Pyromancer deck can definitely definitely be a double-edged sword, as it were, being a mostly go-wide deck. But against Andy's deck, you can either shatter with it, or when they've got a big old board like they did last game,
big old boy,
you can just knock him in the face for 5. Makes him sack everything to Arcbound Ravager, or just take the hit.
That's right.
So you never know. You never know which mode you're going to be using. So here we have another Fatal Push. I think now's the time to do it.
Yeah, just do it.
Andy doesn't have the mana to Evolutionary Leap that creature. And
yeah, dude. Kurt's got a 16-turn clock here.
Yes, that's what I call Modern.
Little spirit that could.
Yeah, just push it, man. He doesn't have a target. There you go.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, all of these cards... Booyah!
Why didn't...
Tear.
Man. Can you imagine if he could have fused that?
All right, let's get wear and tear up, boys.
Can you imagine
we just saw him tear an Evolutionary Leap. That's what I'm talking about, fam.
No, I think you should have waited till you had third mana to fuse him.
Yeah, I mean, that... Yeah, that's...
Because that Evolutionary Leap wasn't doing any work right then.
Canyon Slaw coming into play on tap because he's got a mountain. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about the wear and tear. Wear is shatter, and tear is demystify, but it's on the same card. So you can cast. What's cool is you can cast one card, or you can pay both of their mana costs and cast both of them. And that's why people who can play wear and tear play wear and tear. It's a literal 2-for-1 with 3 mana.
Or a 1-for-1 for less mana.
Exactly. It's great. It's literally shatter and literally demystify.
It's got 3 modes.
That's right.
Destroy an artifact or an enchantment or both, depending on the mana. It's more like an escalate type.
It has 3 different It has 3 different mana costs too. 1, 2, and 3. It depends on where it is. If it's in the deck, it's 3.
Yep.
If you're casting it, it depends on what you're casting it for, and it can be for 1, 2, or 3. That's really cool.
In the same way,
Colligan's command, be in a house, as per usual, doing 2 damage to a creature, and destroying an artifact. Interestingly enough, with wear and tear, if you Bloodbraid into it, you have to choose one or the other. You can't choose both. Because you can only choose both when you
cast it.
That's right. Man, we are seeing all the hits here, and that's how Kurt is going to win this game with 1 spirit, the little spirit that could. Except now he's behind on board.
Yeah, everything's
no, those aren't on board. That was a discard spell. Those aren't even on the board.
Yeah, Kurt's draws are just lining up here. That Stony's
doing I'm getting confused. And he's only able to play 1 spell a turn though, too.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate.
Hangerback Walker's pretty sweet because when it dies, it's going to make a blocker for this spirit.
And we're going to go ahead and get that out of the way.
And we're going to go ahead and get a blocker for the spirit because it makes what, Connor?
A flying Thopter.
Thop, 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 thop. That's the sound a Thopter makes.
Absolutely, that's why it's called that.
Thop, 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 thop.
It thopts. Thopts. It's hard to say thopts. That the T and S doesn't really flow together well. All right, what do we got here? What's Kurt playing?
Hopefully a removal.
Mana.
Hopefully a removal spell for this Thopter.
If it's another Terminate, I'm gonna be real happy.
Terminate in 2018. Wow.
Nope. Bedlam Reveler.
All right.
That's fine. He's gonna draw a Terminate.
So now we have a real clock.
There's
here.
A Wear and Tear. Lingering Souls. Thoughtseize. That's great.
And that was great. That was perfect. That was the last card in his hand.
Don't even cast the Wear and Tear. You can just fuse it next turn.
Just wait to fuse it, dude. Cast the Lingering Souls.
There's no enchantment though. There's no
cast the Lingering Souls. Doesn't matter.
He doesn't have enough mana to cast Lingering Souls.
He can destroy his own Stony Silence. It's okay. Just cast.
Let's not do that. Let's not destroy our own Stony Silence.
I am not encouraging him to destroy his own Stony Silence. I'm just saying that he can, so that he can fuse them, which would be cool. Yeah. We're definitely going to see a Game 3 here. It would be so shocking to me if Andy could pull this out.
Yeah, this is a really rough spot.
He keeps having to do... Oh, there's the Nature's Claim. Spoke too soon.
Suddenly...
Turns on a lot of his mana.
Suddenly, Andy has mana, but he only has 1 card in hand.
He's got mana, man.
He only has 1 card in hand, and it's a...
He keeps having to do damage to himself because of this stupid Horizon Canopy.
I love that card, but... Man, the downs are really down. The lows are so low.
The highs aren't even that high.
You ever been stuck with a Horizon Canopy as your only green source against burn? Oh, it feels so bad.
I love it. I love it when my opponent plays Horizon Canopy Mana Dork because I know that that's the only land in that hand, and it's like I was already gonna bolt this Mana Dork.
Oh yeah.
And now I know for sure that this is the right play.
Just validate everything.
It validates everything. Especially when they don't draw another land.
Bolt the bird. Well, we're not. That's not bolt the bird. We got talking about killing Mana Dork, so I had to say bolt the bird.
That's right.
Just escape.
Classic play.
Classic bolt the bird. Oh, we're gonna trade.
We're trading.
With that Thopter.
Oh,
here's some more spirits, and Andy says, "Okay, I've seen it."
Andy's scooping it up. That was just a beating. Andy was on the back foot of that the entire time. Could only cast 1 spell a turn, and Kyle kept killing him. So we're going to see a Game 3, which is lit. All right, Connor. You want to hear a joke?
Yeah, what's up?
All right. So there's 2 guys on a boat, a canoe rather. 2 guys in a canoe in the desert. One guy has an oar, and the other guy doesn't. And the guy with the oar says to the guy without the oar, "Where's your oar?" And the guy without the ore says, sure does.
That's so bad. Such a bad joke.
It's my favorite joke.
I've never heard it before. I'm pretty sure you heard that today and decided it was your favorite joke.
It's my favorite joke. Everyone in the stream, tell me if you get the joke.
It's so bad.
I'll give you a hint.
Can we get somebody else?
It's a double entendre.
Can we get
I will give you a hint. It's a double entendre. Tell me in the stream if you get the joke and if you like it. So we're going to game 3. We're going to game 3 here at Top Deck Productions, Friday Night Magic, Modern FNM.
Friday Night FNM.
That's right. Mardu Pyro versus Hardened Scales Affinity. The Hardened Scales Affinity deck I really wanted to have on camera because
it's awesome. Look at it. Just watch all the things that it does.
It's starting to pick up traction. Going into this team GP, I expect this to be one of the decks that people play because it is an Ancient Stirrings deck. I was talking to Jason Morgan, and he had an excellent point. He was thinking that every team should have a Faithless Looting deck, a Ancient Stirrings deck, and then something like blue-white control or humans. And I'm suspecting that that is largely going to be the case. You can have blue-white control, Hollow One, and Tron on the same team, and there's no overlap, not even close.
Absolutely. All right, so
and Hardened Scales Affinity can fill the role of the Ancient Stirrings deck.
There's
so this,
the Hardened Scales.
This is a much better turn. Holy crap! He got a Darksteel Citadel, an Arcbound Ravager, and an Arcbound Worker, and a Mox Opal. Because all 3 of those things are artifacts. It turns on what, Connor?
Metalcraft.
Metalcraft states that you have to have 3 artifacts in order for it to do some effect, and in this case, Mox Opal gets to tap for any one color.
It is the 4th strangest keyword in this game.
I'm going to take your word for it, and that let him cast the Hardened Scales. So on turn 1, Andy got to put 4 things into play. He had 2 mana, but not at the same time.
Not at the same time.
That's the interesting thing about the Affinity deck, is it often can have more than 1 mana,
but not all at the same time.
Yeah, on turn 1, but not simultaneously. Notice how he not only did not, but could not have played a 2 mana spell.
So you don't want to hear my ranking of the weirdest keywords?
And he's attacking for 1. That's what we got going on. Okay, what are your top 4 weirdest keyword abilities?
So obviously Metalcraft. Because look at it, it's just 3 artifacts. Where'd that come from? It's just so wacky. You know, I love it. You get Bushido coming in 3rd. Bushido. When are you going to use that?
When you block or become blocked.
I like Bushido's a weird one.
Bushido is very specific. It's not like they can just. It's not evergreen. They have to do it on a Japanese plane.
Okay, so no, you're close. Banding is my number 1. Banding is my number 1 weirdest keyword because you have to explain it every single time.
And most people don't get it. Horsemanship was your number 2, right?
No, flanking.
Flanking?
Flanking was my number 2. But horsemanship and Gravestorm were close contenders for the top 4.
Those are a lot weirder than Metalcraft. Metalcraft makes sense. Metalcraft can go in any artifact set.
You're right.
Some of these are culturally specific, which is not. I wouldn't want to use the word weird, but they are. I would use the word narrow, a narrow keyword ability. In order to use something like Bushido, it has to be like a Japanese theme. Right. At least part of it, because Bushido is the way of the samurai.
You're right. There's all sorts of stuff happening on Andy's board here. We've got a something module. I can't read it. They all. It's
the animation module, right?
Animation module. It makes a 1/1, I believe.
Let's bring it up. This card does some things, and look at what Andy. Look at all that Andy's able to do with one land. Count them 1.
He cast that Walking Ballista for 1 mana, and look how many counters it has.
It has 2, baby. Animation module.
Whenever 1 or more 1/1 counters are placed on a permanent you control, you may pay 1 if you make a servo. It's pretty good. It's pretty good because you're putting 1/1 counters on things a lot. 3 tap, choose a counter on target permanent or player, and well, that's basically targeted proliferate.
Yeah, but it's only one. It's only one.
Okay, we got a second land out of Kurt finally. Or are we actually just on the second turn? Have we just been...
Kamigawa, so if you think of there's the storm scale, there's the, what plane is Arabian Nights on?
I think it's just on Earth.
No, it's, anyway, Mark Rosewater came up with a storm scale for planes, and it's called, I don't remember what plane Arabian Nights takes place on, but whatever plane the Arabian Nights is on, that's the name of the scale, and it works the same way. The storm scale, though, it's a ranking system of planes that they are likely and unlikely to go back to, with a 9 being
least likely.
Least likely, and Kamigawa was pretty high up there.
And we have the storm scale, which is mechanics that are likelihood to see reprint. It is a scale of 10.
Rabia.
The Rabia scale.
The Rabia scale.
That's
so
the plane.
Rabia is the plane that the Arabian Nights expansion took place on, and it is the least likely. It has a Rabia scale of 9. It's the least likely plane for us to ever go back to. Kamigawa was like an 8. Kamigawa was like a 7 or an 8 on this scale. It's a real scale.
Yeah,
look it up.
Look it up too.
We had to look up the name of it, but I read the article that Mark Rosewater did. It's a real thing, just like the storm scale, and that's what it measures.
It's really interesting to read the storm scale because some of the keywords are not where you would expect them to be.
Yeah, I mean, it sometimes it has to do with
devotion is pretty low, but chroma is pretty high, even though they're almost the same.
Well, it just depends on how liked it was. Some mechanics. Some mechanics were really popular and well received, and those are mechanics that they were kind of incentivized to go back to. And other ones are more easy to include into a set, to build a set around. And that's what the storm scale is. And it's the same thing with world building. Some planes were well received and others weren't. I know the Kamigawa block is one of the least popular. I like the Kamigawa block. I think Japanese mythology, as well as culture, because I think they did a pretty good job there, is interesting, but mechanically it was a weak set.
Yeah, I agree.
There wasn't a lot going on.
I did a Betrayers of Kamigawa draft at an event one time, and it was really, really bad.
It's sad when
cards are so bad.
The best cards in the set, in your Legends Matter set, are artifacts. Top, Umezawa Jite.
Yeah, it's
a card that hates artifacts. Kataki War's Wage.
It was a set of really solid cards, but not within itself. It was a bad draft set.
It was a Legends Matter set, and a lot of the Legends just completely missed the mark.
It was real big on Tribes Matter too.
Ninjas, spirits, samurai, rats.
I'm referring to the goblin foxes.
The goblins and the foxes, those were there too.
Right. Those were the tribes. The samurai was a subtype. Well, it was a different subtype. It was a theme, but it wasn't one of the tribes. It was the 5 patrons for the 5 races on Kamigawa. That's one of the sets was real heavy on those. One of them was really heavy on samurai, and another was really heavy on spirits. So, we've got a lot of permanents, but a lot of very minimally impactful permanents on Andy's side, wouldn't you say?
They all add up.
What's the sleeve? Is that just
this is another servo or a thopter?
It's probably a servo. But yeah, we've got Kurt's.
Yeah, the animation module makes a servo, so it's a servo.
Kurt's deck really isn't lining up the way it was last game. We've got some removal spells hitting the yard here, but not a lot.
He doesn't have he gets to flash back this Lingering Souls, but he doesn't have a white source to cast the one in his hand. I don't know. See, this deck turns the corner, dude. Look at that.
Yeah, look at all that power he just threw out of there.
Kurt also has a poison, thanks to Inkmoth Nexus. Thanks to Inkmoth Nexus.
One old trigger.
Yeah, because you never know. I've had to do I remember when I played Affinity, there would be games where I would do like 19 to my opponent, like in damage, and then I had to do the 10, the 10 infect.
That's just nothing.
It's
dumb.
It was pretty dumb.
Yeah, it's a bad position to be in. You gotta really choose the game plan early on.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do to get there, but most of the time it's just rough to have to deal.
Yeah, it was great against Shadow. You got
damage.
It was against Shadow. You let them do all the damage to themselves while you went after them with infects, so they had to use all of their removal spells taking care of your infectors, and then you would just get to finish them off with regular damage.
Yeah.
Or you could do it the other way around, if that was better. But they only have so much removal that you would choose one plan or the other and then kill them with the other one.
Right.
I like that matchup a lot.
Oh, we got Module doing some Module stuff.
We got tokens on the board. I appreciate that Kurt actually has his tokens. If those are his. Otherwise, they're the streams. The stream supplies a lot of the tokens. We have little boxes off to the side that have the common tokens that you need for your token deck. So even if you don't have them, we get to use them on stream. I think that's important.
Yep.
But if you are playing a deck that involves tokens, please, for the love of God, have tokens. Have your tokens. I've had people playing a token deck ask me if I have a token for their token maker. I'm playing Burn. I have never played a token maker in that deck. I would love one. I think it'd be great because you know I would be all about like some tokens.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I've gotten all the tokens for my Tron deck. I've got not custom, but Cardamajig's Worm tokens with a little like animated front, which is really cool.
The pixel ones. That's the second time we've seen a polluted Delta in the Mardu Pyro deck.
Are we just missing something? Is that good? Is that
you can bluff. So if you go polluted Delta pass, you can bluff a different deck.
That's true.
Like you can do that. Like people tell me all the time. Like I read that all the time. Like in Burn, you play Scalding Tarn, and you can bluff a different deck, but sooner or later, your opponent's going to figure out that only works so often. And sooner or later, your opponent's going to figure out what you're on, and whatever. I don't know why Polluted Delta's in either one of these Mardu Pyro decks that we've had on camera tonight, but it doesn't matter because it gets to go and get the swamps that they care about.
And that's the big deal.
Yep. So like we were talking about. See, there's a Godless Shrine.
Yeah.
Last round we saw Sacred Foundry, and I think we saw a Sacred Foundry out of this deck as well. So they can have a Sacred Foundry, a Godless Shrine, and a Plains. So they always have the white mana.
I think what Kurt's doing is playing a Godless Shrine and a Sacred Foundry rather than a Sacred Foundry and a Plains.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I don't know what kind of tax it has on. I don't know what tax it has on. Playing all on the deck if you play all three,
yeah.
But it's not zero, and I understand that not everyone's going to have Marsh Flats, but at some point you need to get the right lands for your deck.
Yeah,
and you can do that by earning store credit at your local game store.
And that very well could be what Kurt's doing here. It's just unusual. We saw two different Mardu players playing the same off-colored land.
Local game stores like GameSwap Mason, which sponsors Top Deck Productions,
yeah, get that plug
where you and your friends can play Magic 4 nights a week, including Modern on Tuesday and Thursday, Standard Wednesday and Friday, which is a part of our Triple Friday Night Magic, featuring Drafts, Standard, and Modern.
You got big old Friday nights up here.
That's right. Our Friday nights are thick. And in the back, we've got people just jamming Commander.
All the time.
All the time. So it's more like a quadruple.
Absolutely.
You want to come up and play some casual, some casual.
You can find pauper pickups all over the place. You know, it's a good time.
Great.
It's a good time.
Our FNM is lit.
It's pretty lit.
It's pretty lit. So yeah, we're located at 1065 Reading Road, Mason, Ohio. Just the northern suburbs of Cincinnati. If you're in the area, come and hang out with us.
Yeah,
there's something for everybody. So there's a Sacred Foundry, right next to the Blood Moon, right on time. Turns them all into mountains. Doesn't matter that it's also a Plains. It'll be a mountain once that card's out. And man, Kurt has really turned this game around.
Oh, yeah.
His deck
this is looking good for him.
Well, that's what Andy gets for not playing any interactive spells. I mean, not really. His deck doesn't have any removal. That is kind of the downside, is you give up being able to play spells like Dispatch and
I've seen a lot of
Galvanic
people play,
Blast.
Aether Grid. I think Aether Grid would be pretty solid.
You need Mox Opal to be able to cast it. Mox Opal is your only way of getting red, and so early lists of the Hardened Scales deck had cards like Blood Moon and Gear for Aether Grid.
Well, you can play Grove of the Burn Willows is pretty solid for that.
They're playing... That is fair. I'll give you that one. They're playing Horizon Canopy, because if you're playing green and you can play Horizon Canopy, you should play Horizon Canopy. It's also true if you're playing white and can play Horizon Canopy, you should be playing that land. I've seen decks that are just white and play Horizon Canopy that have absolutely no green cards in it, because that's how good Horizon Canopy is. Could you imagine if they ever made the mistake of making any other color combination that did what Horizon Canopy does?
Oh yeah, like any blue card, like any Horizon Canopy version that has blue on it would be just ridiculous.
They put it on the color combination that can abuse it the least, and it's still really good. That's how insane that effect is. A land being able to draw you a card.
I play one in Tron. Like
at some point,
late game, you get to search for it with your map top decks, and you get to snap
and it's another green source.
Snap it up. It's another green source. You know, search for it late game, you get a redraw. It's a 3-mana redraw with a map, admittedly. Or a 4-mana redraw if it's an expedition map. Yeah. Yeah, no, this guy gets it. No canopies and other combinations. That would just be no good. No bueno.
Yeah. Like, everyone would play them. You just, like, fast lands, forget it. Like, if they made a red-white one, I would play it over Inspiring Vantage.
Oh yeah.
You heard it here, and I constantly talk about how Inspiring Vantage is the best card in Burn because it's plateau. I would play
even if it was red-green.
No.
If it was red-green, you just play it in Burn and then still play Destructive Revelries.
It would require some. It would require a reconfiguration of the deck. I'm saying red-white, so we stay on color. And does the same thing.
So good, so good.
You play that over Inspiring Vantage. As good as Inspiring Vantage is, doesn't matter. That card can draw. That card can draw you a card. That is so powerful on a land. Burn is already tier 1 without it, but like, dude, it makes it even like it makes it something else entirely.
Yeah, like the deck would just be miles.
I'd probably play the red-green one because I think you would just have to. That's the problem with that effect.
Honestly, just red and anything.
Yeah. Honestly. Yeah. I'd play at least one.
Yeah.
I would probably have to make room for more. That's why they've never completed that cycle. And I think some of the other cards in that cycle, there's Nimbus of Clouds.
Nimbus Maze.
There's Nimbus Maze.
River of Tears.
River of Tears.
No. Yeah, I'm thinking
River of Tears. And Grove of the Burn Willows and Graven
Cairns.
Graven Cairns, they completed the cycle for both ally and enemy color cards.
But the rest of them were
they never even touched. And I think all of them but Horizon Canopy are fine.
Dude, Canopy and Black Green would be insane because then you get like a loam package.
Oh yeah, that's insane. No, literally, they picked the worst 2 colors in Magic, and it's still really like to give that card to put that card in.
Yeah.
And like it's still way
Andy's
too good.
Gonna give up the handshake here.
So that's gonna be it for round 4. We'll have round 5 up for you in not too long. I'm gonna have to peace out because I'm already late for work. So that's it for me. I'd like to let everyone know that we appreciate it here at Top Deck Productions, you guys coming out and joining us tonight. But this is Zachary Creamer, and I'm going to be taking my leave. I didn't realize what time it was until just now.
The old split cards from Ravnica. It says